Hey everybody, it's Norm from Tested here at Wonderfest 2025, and I'm chatting with Kevin Hoppert. Kevin!
Again? Nice
yes,
to see you again.
yes. A couple years ago, you brought a scale version of the Death Star 2 port that the ships fly into, and had this great architectural detail with truss work and all the exposed internal structure. And exposed internal structure seems to be one of your passions.
Yeah, it's the, ever since the cross-section books where this came from.
Yeah.
Star Wars incredible cross-sections, and ever since I saw the picture, I was like, which one of these I'm gonna build?
Yeah.
So it basically, I was just doing a maquette of it, which is what the original part of this was. It was just a shell, and I cut it apart and started putting ping pong balls and stuff in there just to kind of line stuff up.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so obviously it's a Star Destroyer. You've done this cutaway. You said you're inspired by some of those cutaway model books.
Yeah.
But this is your own invention, right?
This is actually from the book.
Oh, it's a recreation of an illustration?
So the story was, I had just made a maquette of it. I was just goofing around on weekends.
Yeah.
And David West Reynolds, who authored the book, happened to be at Wonderfest, and I had it in my car, so I brought it up there and said, hey, you want to see this?
Yeah.
And we ended up talking for like an hour. 5 minutes turned into an hour. And the next year came along, and he was like, hey, I'm doing a museum exhibit to his life. It was over the bridge in Indiana, and it was basically the story of his life, a hero's journey it was called. And he's like, this would go great right next to the books. So it ended up being, can you just flesh it out and finish it? It's like, well, it's a prototype, but so it's basically one of these, like a lot of things happen. The maquette turns into a full-blown model. Yeah. It is like a predecessor to if I ever do the full 4 foot one day. So I know how to do it now.
That's great. That's crazy, because we're going to talk about this. You're considering this a first pass to help you map out structurally how you would do a 4 foot version of this cutaway.
Yep. Which should be easier because the parts are twice as big.
Yeah, right. You know? But even as a 2 foot model, so the original donor kit, like this was a Star Destroyer model kit. Which one was this?
This started as like the Zvezda, and then Revell took it. But but again, it was like a Class 2 shell, but it was a maquette, so I was just screwing around.
Yeah.
And when we said finish it, I changed the bridge and I changed the engine and stuff like that, just to kind of make it more Class 1-ish. But you know, it's a prototype, so.
Yes. Yep. So you added the more detail because you knew you weren't just. It wasn't just an exploration of the interior.
Right.
Well, tell me about detailing the interior, because like there are hull levels and deck levels that you have to kind of pad out to create the illusion of decks. And then there's all this structure. Like you said, you followed the illustration, but talk about the layering, talk about the how this internal structure works for you.
Dave and I talked about how they layered the actual 2D pictures.
Yeah.
And then I went from there and basically figured out what are the connection points, what are all the pieces under the hull that I can go one way, the other way. And then there was, I want to say, 3 dozen sub-assemblies.
Wow.
So, and nothing was glued till 2 days before I delivered it, because it was all modular and it's all notched together real nicely. So basically, I could take this thing apart and put it back together. My record was 23 seconds.
Wow.
But I have videos of like time-lapse doing that. But
with your 3 dozen sub-assemblies.
Yeah.
Well, call us some of the sub-assemblies. Like obviously this big engine.
It started with the engine that was a ping pong ball basically, and basically worked that up, and then worked the wall in between the front and the back, which gave me separation. Got the bays cut out of how I was going to do it, and then basically this started with the bay, added another piece. Then there was like what I guess is dirt and water and stores and things like that of things for the ship.
Yeah.
But it's pretty close to the picture. I think the only thing that's different is I had to stretch it in here because of the difference in the shells in the maquette. But other than that, it's probably about 95% accurate. And, you know, it just started building layers, and like this was a one piece, and then another piece went on top, and then these had to fit. So, like I said, nothing was glued until the very end, which was kind of cool.
I see styrene work, of course, but there seems to be a lot of like wire work too, bent metal here.
It ended up being just the thinnest piano wire I could find, because there's actually 50 ties in here. So
50 TIE fighters are in here.
They're little. It was the first time I actually used 3D printing.
I see that. So the metal wire here, they're
floating in there. They're hanging in there.
These are all hanger
So
bays.
these are all hand built, and then I fished piano wire through because it was stiff enough to hold the ties up. So there's just rows and rows and rows of ties. There's actually ties in the back that are being like transported. It was in the picture. So
did you have a jig to get those curves perfectly aligned?
Yeah. And the interesting thing with that was we tried painting the ties, but they're so tiny, they're like the size of a pinhead.
Yeah.
And there's a name for it, but it was basically, I painted 2 of them up painstakingly, and it looked like a hole in the wing.
Right.
And we went back to the actual book, and they did the same thing because it was more of just a wash on the wings then because the black just didn't look right.
Yeah, you want that contrast.
At that scale anyways.
Yeah, right. And then you have the blockade runner.
Yeah.
Also.
That was like the final piece. Oh yeah, I got to put a blockade runner in there.
Oh my gosh. So this is representative of the opening Star Destroyer that you see in the first shot.
Yeah, well, more so to the book, but it's based on that. Yeah.
Right. Wow.
And the decking and everything pretty much matches what the book had and the where I sliced it all. So like all of these are just modules that clip together eventually, and then the 5-minute epoxy point was scary because I had like 30 seconds left because it was like getting all the pieces in and then putting the hulls on and then all the clips on.
Is that pencil work for detail? For some of the scribing?
I was actually working. The engine's actually light, which is really all the original model had.
Okay.
So I replicated that, but it was just for more just, that's nostalgia that they did have that.
Right.
But yeah, we were trying to light this because in the book it kind of looked like that would be lit. Mm-hmm. And it didn't look right. It kind of started to look toy, but it ended up being the best way to do the little ball was just pencil work, and it worked out beautiful. Yeah. I made a little jig and went around. And all the little markings and things, which I have no idea what some of those mean, but it was in the book, so I put them in there.
Well, I love the color also of the interior. It's not just white and grays and different of those tones, but like you were mimicking the illustration, and obviously that was made so the individual components would read and really stand out. And so the dark reds and the oranges here really, really worked.
Yeah, my favorite part of the whole thing actually was the water in the little stores. I guess it's water.
Oh. That's supposed to be like some type of...
it was like a micro needle, and I just injected clear resin.
Real
slowly, and it actually, all the bubbles were popping as it went in, and it's like, okay, that worked, we'll move on.
Wow. When, I'm gonna say if, when you get to the 4-foot version, is it gonna be difficult to translate these micro versions and 2x the size up?
Not really, because when I did it, I have pictures of all the modules as they were assembled.
So you just rebuild them.
So basically, the theory is just rebuild them and print some bigger ties.
Yeah.
It was fun for me because I'm an old resin head and scratch builder, because 90% of the scratch build inside the shell.
It is so
And
gorgeous.
it was the first time I was like, you know what? The bridge really wasn't part of this build. So, I was okay with 3D printing the bridge and that sort of, and the ties obviously, because that would have been like couple years of work.
Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful.
So a maquette that turned into a full-blown,
it's still, you consider it a study for a future project.
And it was neat, it's like, hey, it was in a museum, so.
Kevin, I'm gonna put this down. Let me see if we can get this. Is this right here? There it goes.
It's actually sturdier than it looks.
Yeah, no, it's great.
But it's low to the table just in case somebody knocks it over or something.
I also wanted to talk about another model that you had. This is part of the group show, the mashup of the DeLorean Time Machine, and you built one of the most striking ones, to my eye, the Snowspeeder.
Yeah, so I have bins of really old kits just to pull greeblies from and stuff.
That's one of your passions. You collect.
To make all these little parts.
Many old Star Wars model kits. You have a massive collection.
I have like every commercial kit in the world from 40 countries, and it got to a point where I ran out of things to collect.
Yeah.
So I actually have like series of like bootlegs, and then there's one series from Japan that had bootlegs of bootlegs. They're like revered kits.
So when you were looking for a 1/24th kit to marry with the DeLorean, easy for you to pull old Snowspeeder.
Yeah, I was just putting like the body on top of things.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the cut lines on the 40-year-old, 45-year-old Snowspeeder kit lined up perfectly. So like the wheel well was over the gun support. The wheel well went into the end. It was like,
that's funny.
That's crazy. 45 years later, that would just fit on there like that.
It wasn't just finding the right vehicle, you had to find the right interpretation
Right.
of the vehicle that would make your job easier.
And doing this kind of stuff, there's times I wanted to black the windows out.
Oh,
but
just to-
I wanted to be I wanted to be true to the DeLorean.
Yeah.
Because it's a beautiful kit.
It is, yeah.
And so the inside is actually slimmed down to a one-seater, but you know the way it was with Dak and Luke.
I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
I saw that you
So
had turned 2 seats into
it's-
one, but you have a rear gunner seat too.
It's faithful to the DeLorean interior and faithful to the Snowspeeder from 40 years ago. The hardest part was obviously the 45-year-old decals. You know, there's one set in the. I found them, and it's like, well, if they stick, they stick. If they don't, you know.
How much of that was a grafting of the Snowspeeder for the seats?
It was about a month of grafting. Like you cut a little piece out of the door.
Yeah.
Because I had to make it look like the doors would actually operate.
Right.
You know, you don't want to just slap them on there and somebody be like, oh, well, the door wouldn't open. You know, that kind of thing.
Oh my goodness.
And all the piping just worked out and things like that. And when I did the side shot, it's like, oh, it's actually not that bulky looking. It's kind of sleek looking.
You kept the flux capacitor off to the left there?
The tires from if you turn it around, the tires from the DeLorean ended up being like
engines, yes.
Fans.
Everything from the fins here to the fins in the back there, everything blends well.
So everything from the DeLorean paint is there and represented, but I melded it with the other pieces. The funny thing is, I was trying to figure out how to name it. Bill George being Bill George. Well, Dak to the Future.
Nice.
I tried to think of other ones, so it's like I owe him a drink for that.
That's awesome. Oh, including the bottom as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fully fleshed out. That is so cool.
Yeah, it's actually a nice little piece you put on a shelf, and a Snowspeeder. It's like, no, look closer.
Exactly it. It has a perfect
What's
silhouette
all this,
of the Snowspeeder, but once you go, I'm like, wait, no, that's an 80s car right there.
It's just it's amazing just melding a 40-year-old kit with a beautiful new kit 40 years later for their anniversary. It's cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
A wonderful, wonderful build on both of these, and we can't wait to see that 4-foot version.
Yeah, that'll be.
Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah,
great to see you again at Wonderfest.
Good to see you, man.
Thank you guys so much for watching that video. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you we have some excellent merch. We have a 5-pack of demerit badges for sale right now at tested/store.com. We've got the I hung it off of level demerit badge, the I built the chair backwards demerit badge, the I hit my thumb with a hammer demerit badge. We've got the stapler in my finger demerit badge, and my favorite, I stuck the duct tape to itself demerit badge. Get yours now, tested/store.store. Tested-store. Tested. It's right here. There. Just click there.